What's your biggest fear? Is it as simple as spiders? Or maybe it's more complicated. Maybe you have a phobia. Monophobia, I know what that feels like. Well, that's what I'm supposed to say at least. That isn't the truth though. I was diagnosed with monophobia when I was just a teenager. The doctor told my parents that I couldn't be alone, that I couldn't sustain my own self alone. They did a survey on me, about 20 questions. They had asked only about my behavior when I was isolated, and I responded honestly. What they didn't ask was personal experiences while being alone. They first asked how I felt alone. I responded with paranoid. They checked something off their list, then began to ask me to describe these feelings and explain more for the rest of the survey. Then they made an offer to run a quick test to see how long I can exactly be alone before I begin panicking. I agreed just to satisfy them, and partly for my curiosity. My parents, on the other hand, were a bit reluctant of it, but it was my choice. They placed me in a padded room, as if I was some sort of mental patient. The room was pretty spacey, about 10 feet wide on each direction. There were cameras on each corner, all facing at me. They told me sit in the center of the room and relax myself. I was sitting down crisscrossed, breathing in and out slowly. Then the room darkened, and my heart immediately stopped. The hair on my neck was rising. They didn't tell me they would shut the lights off, so obviously I was getting scared. I already felt like I was being watched. Well, I was, but not by the cameras. It felt like the darkness itself was staring at me, almost laughing at my stupidity to agree to the test. I was terrified by this point, for I already knew what comes next. I began to look around me, but could only see a wall of darkness. It felt like the room had gotten shorter, and I was now stuck in a small box of darkness. I was too scared to get up. Hell, I was too scared to even move a single muscle. The silence alone was piercing my ears, almost to the bleeding point. I began to claw at the padded floor, scratching the surface of it. Then I heard her soft footsteps approaching from behind me. Then I felt her, the weight of her steps shifting the padded floor around. She was getting closer each second, and I was too afraid to look behind me. I couldn't face her again. I couldn't look into her black eye sockets. Her hand grabbed my shoulder, and I let out a shriek of absolute terror. I heard the door open, and multiple footsteps approached me in a matter of seconds. Several hands grabbed my arms, and several men dragged me out of the room. My parents began talking to me, both speaking so fast and at the same time, I couldn't even hear a single word they said. After a few minutes, the doctor called me towards him. I told him about what happened, what I felt and saw. The doctor said I only lasted approximately 3 minutes before I shrieked. I immediately asked the doctor why they turned the lights off if they were going to examine me. The doctor was dumbfounded and gave me a cold stare. Apparently, he didn't turn off the lights, or anyone for that matter. I asked him if he had seen her. He obviously said no, and he had a worried look on his face. He told me to go back to my parents, but I didn't tell them the experience. After half an hour, the doctor ruled it as monophobia anyway. He showed me the video clip of the test, just in case he missed something. The video was exactly 3 minutes long, on the dot. The video clip showed me sitting there. A minute in, the lights were still bright on, By this point, I had already believed the doctor that nothing happened, until I saw her in the video. She appeared out of thin air, just a foot or two behind me. I couldn't see the details on her face, but I could see her long black hair dragging on the floor. I pointed it out to the doctor, but he told me there was nothing there. So now I can't be alone in a room at all. I sleep in my parents' room, on the floor besides the bed. However, I've started to wake up in the middle of the night now. I can feel her blank eye sockets aimed towards me, and I can hear her skin stretch as she cracks a smile.